Welcome to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. These guys are brave. They're Hawkeyes, living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes. They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled. Cornhuskers? More like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right, welcome back to Nebraska Hawkeyes. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to get all of our latest interviews with Iowa Hawkeye legends, players, coaches, personnel, the whole gambit. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Nathan and Scott Chandler. How's it going, guys?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome having you guys both here. And from what I've been reading and everything, you guys are in a family joint business venture right now. Can you tell us and all the Hawkeye fans out there what you guys are up to and how you guys got started working together?
Yeah, so when I got done playing, I came down to Texas and started in real estate business. Scott stayed busy with football for a while after that. And so I had got to a CEO position with a group that raises private equity for real estate investments. And Scott called me up when he got done playing and said, "Hey, I'd like to come work with you guys." And I said, "How about we just start our own company?" And so we did. We started Chandler Real Estate Investments, and it's been a lot of fun. We love each other. We love working together, and this gives us a chance to spend some time on the FaceTime at least every day.
You guys don't have any of the brotherly quarrels like back in the day, like, going back and forth. I feel like that's just like a natural thing that siblings do no matter what, is you just like get at each other once in a while.
Nathan's 5 years older than me, so there weren't too many times that I got the better of him. And even still, I just let him bully me around and I just do whatever he says.
I will say, so growing up, when I'm 10, he's 5, right? I mean, that's not a fair match. But what we would do is, in the middle of the summer in Texas, 100 degrees outside, we'd find every winter coat, ski pant, everything we had in the house, and we would bundle Scott up so he looked like a round ball of cushion. And we'd go play tackle football in the front yard. It didn't do much for his mobility, just to add to his disadvantages. But, it didn't hurt him as much.
It made me cry less.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a hell of an idea. At least you thought of a way to protect him. I don't think most siblings would have even done that. They would have just taken him outside and beaten the hell out of him playing football and everything else. So you showed early on that you had that caring side as a brother.
That's right. Yeah, that was probably our biggest fight, was me trying to get him to walk away from ET and come outside and play with me. And then when he wanted to quit, I'd peg him or just older brother jerk stuff. But he perfected the 3-point shot and then run inside while I go for the rebound. Old brother trick.
After you lose like 4 games in a row, you get a little demoralized. You're ready to go inside and, get some Kool-Aid or something. So, yeah, you throw the 3 up and then run inside before he gets you.
Had to fuel back up and catch him when he wasn't looking. Would have given you hell for going inside. So you guys have both, like we were kind of talking about before we got on camera, have really developed some large families of your own. Tell us about both of you, and we'll start with Scott this time. Tell us about your family, how many kids you have, where you guys are living right now, and what your kids are up to.
Yeah, I live in North Liberty, Iowa, so right in the Iowa City area. I married my wife right before I got drafted. So she's an Iowa girl, and we have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. Our daughters are 11, 9 and 7, Lila, Beta, and Ivy, and then our son is 4. His name is Towns. And yeah, I mean, we have a lot of fun. We get to go to a lot of Hawkeye games when they allow fans, and I have season tickets to the football games. So sitting in that New North end zone, it's great. We enjoy it. Get to be around friends and get to interact with the players every now and then. Usually do the try and help them out business wise. Just some of the great thing about the Iowa Hawkeye community is guys really do look out for players when they get done playing. If they can give them a job in construction or medical sales or real estate, I think guys are really willing to help and try and set up guys to be successful.
That's great. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, so I've got 5 kids, ranging from 14 to 8-year-old twin boys, and the oldest 2 are boys, so I've got a girl right in the middle. And I was trying to solve for that. Scott and I are the only 2 boys in our family, and we're 5 years apart. So the only time we ever got to be teammates is when I was a 5th-year senior at Iowa, and he was a true freshman. So that was, you guys all got to witness kind of a special time for us. In fact, I got to run in a touchdown against Michigan when Scott was in the game, and he picked me up off the ground, and luckily that was captured in the newspaper. So we've got some copies of that picture. It's a special time for us. I will say there was one other time when I was a senior in high school that I picked Scott up for as an 8th grader. We went and played in a varsity 7-on-7 tournament and smoked everybody. So that was our complete experience as teammates before he came to Iowa. But I fixed that in my family. My oldest 2 are 13 months apart, and my younger boys are twins. So maybe it's the teammateage happening.
What kind of influence did you have on your younger brother when he was looking at what college he was going to go to? Did you say, hey, come on over, let's be a Hawk, or did you kind of stay back and let him make his own decision there?
I stayed out of it as much as I could, especially because I knew I'd only be there for 1 year. But definitely, I definitely wanted him to experience what I got to see there as just a community. And we've always said there's a lot of correlation the way we were raised here in Texas and working hard and family, and then what I experienced in Iowa. And Scott obviously ended up being there longer than I did, because I was a JUCO transfer. He was there for 4 years. But I think he was at camp for 1 day before Ferentz pulled him off to the side and said, hey, we were recruiting you because your brother's here, but after we saw how you torched everybody at the practice today, we are offering you on the spot. And I think that meant a lot for Scott, that it wasn't, it was merit-based. They weren't offering the quarterback's brother. They were genuinely interested in what they saw in one day at camp. And he'd been doing that at camps all over the nation. And then they'd say, we were looking for a guy faster, which is kind of asinine. That's one of the things Iowa does well, is they recruit football players. And Scott's there tearing up a football camp. It's probably a good sign, I will recognize that.
Yeah, I can kind of expound on that a little bit. He did help my recruiting because I wasn't getting recruited very much. As a junior, I didn't start during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, I kind of came on and had 5 really good playoff games as a junior. But I was 6'7", about 195, 200 pounds. Didn't look like a football player, And honestly, I was better at basketball at that point too. But I went to all these camps. I went to Oklahoma's camp, Texas A&M's camp, SMU's camp, Colorado's camp. Those were all the places I really wanted to go. And at every single one of them, I did the same thing I did at Iowa's camp. I did well, torching DBs and, catching the ball all over the place. And every single place they said, you had a great day today, but you don't look like a football player to us. And like Nathan said, I went to Iowa, and I think it did help that Nathan was 6'7", 265 with a six-pack, and they kind of saw that maybe there was some potential for me to fill out a little bit. I was I was young for my grade of July birthday, so I was 17 years old when I graduated high school, and kind of a late bloomer anyways. So I think that they had that to, they could look at him and be like, well, maybe he can grow into something a little bit more like this. But yeah, I mean, that's true. I went to camp, and after the first day, Coach Ferentz said, we didn't really know you were good, but after today, we're offering you. I committed the next week.
Well, that had to be a great feeling. What do you guys feel like it is with that staff? Because that's one thing that we get over and over again from former players and just from experts around the game is that staff, for some reason, knows how to identify talent in ways that other staffs don't at all. What is it about that coaching staff that you feel like really has an edge on other staffs across the country?
Yeah, I feel like identifying talent is part of it. I feel like what they do better than everybody else is develop players. And now there's a lot more, places that are buying into that. But Iowa was pretty cutting edge with, really spending a lot of time with the players in the off season. I went to Texas Tech out of high school, and it was pretty ragtag as far as what you did in the weight room. You got a piece of paper and you kind of left to your own. And then I went to JUCO, which there was really nobody paying attention to you except for the season. And then you get to Iowa, and it's a program, and it's year round, and it's intelligent as far as they're pushing you, when they're tearing you down, and when they're building you up. And so I think player development is where Iowa was ahead of the game and still excels.
Yeah, and I mean, to piggyback on that, I think that they look for competitive kids that are good athletes that might be undersized, but they think that they can develop body-wise. I mean, I think about how many guys would come in that you look at them and you'd be like, there's no way this guy's going to play football. I remember Carl Klug came in, and he's about 6'2", 6'3", and he had to be 175 pounds.
Wow.
And he came to live with me. I was a senior, and we would let the freshmen, he crashed on my couch for the summer. And I just remember thinking, man, he's a great kid, works hard, but how is he going to have a chance to play? Because he's the defensive lineman, and he's 175 pounds. And, 4 years later, he's getting drafted, and he's playing in the NFL for, 8-9 years. And you look at that, and you're like, how did they see what Carl Klug could be? And I don't know the real answer, but they do it over and over and over again. And you see how many 2 and 3 stars we put in the NFL, and you look at Kittle. Kittle was so skinny, and I don't think he had any, not much hair in his armpits when he got to Iowa. And he was just so fast. We used to have to run, I'd come back and work out with the team, which is another great thing they do. They let the NFL players come back, they, treat them well and let them work out. And we're running sprints. And I was usually a guy that was pretty good at sprints. I had a long stride. And Kittle's just killing me, beating me by, 3 or 4 seconds on these sprints. And, I'm 29 years old, and I'm just like, man, am I getting, old fast here? And the answer was yes, I was, but also that, this guy's a next level athlete that they saw from a little skinny kid with no hair in his armpits turn into the guy who's going to be the best tight end in the NFL.
You guys were there pretty relatively early in Coach Ferentz's tenure. What was it like playing for Kirk? What was your relationship like with him? And how do you feel like he's evolved and developed as a head coach over his tenure? Either one of you.
No, I just think, he's what you see is what you get. He's very straightforward. He's not a guy who is going to blow a lot of smoke up your butt or beat around the bush much. He's really direct, to the point, honest, and if you screw up, he's going to give you as many chances as he can. But once you become a problem, to yourself or to the program, that'll probably be it for you. But I don't know that he's not a guy who screams a bunch. He's tough to a point, but he also lets his coaches coach. And, I think he does a great job of just understanding what the University of Iowa needs. And, we need a program that is going to develop players. And sometimes you have to be a little patient with those guys. But they're investing in these guys. And, he's not really looking for tons of, we don't get a ton of JUCO guys or a ton of, grad transfer type guys. He wants guys that are going to be invested in being an Iowa Hawkeye.
Yeah, I got there in 2002. It's interesting because I had a good junior college career, and I had some choices about where to go after that. And at the end, I had it narrowed down to Mississippi State and Iowa, and both teams were 7-5 that season. And but Iowa had this trajectory that was rising, and Mississippi State was going the other direction. And so I chose Iowa. And when I got there, you could understand why the trajectory was happening. They were building a program, and it took a while to take hold, but it was taking hold in 2002. And that team was just, across the board, it was just such a strong team. And obviously that season played out well. And then you get to our season. We graduated, most of the guys on offense, and we had a really strong defense coming back. And then we had a bunch of injuries at wide receiver. And so what Kirk and the staff did is they adjusted, and we became a grinded out running offense, and our defense held us up. And then after the next year, all their running backs got hurt. And that was Tate's first year. Scott was sophomore that year. And they had a slow start, but they adjusted and they started throwing the ball around the yard. And you ended up with 3 seasons in a row with 10 wins.
Yeah.
In all different ways. I think that's a testament to what he does well. And that's what I came to understand too. When I was, my first year there, we'd show up on Tuesday morning and they'd hand us this sheet of audibles for us quarterbacks. And so every play we want to run that week and what we're going to audible to, if they line up different than we want to see them. And so I hated that. Memorization was never something I was good at, and had this whole sheet of memorization that you had to be sharp on by that day at practice, and then build on every day. But as I started spending time at the facility, watching film, and seeing all the work the coaches did from a game on Saturday until Tuesday morning when we showed up with that piece of paper, they were doing so much film study and scouting of the other team, and there was actually a reason for this page of audibles. And that's what, by my senior year, I came to. I didn't need the sheet of paper anymore. I understood the philosophy of the offense and why we wanted to run certain plays against certain looks. And then when they changed up all the other plays we could run. And what that shows you behind the scenes is we had the most intelligent coaching staff. And we were so prepared when we went into a game. That was one of the advantages we had with this coaching staff.
You guys really, obviously butted up together in your times there. And the crazy thing when you look back at it, I think over any time of Iowa football, you guys had the most characters and just out there guys that just really stood out that fans remember, guys that, we kind of mentioned before we came on, like Matt Roth, and, you guys were loaded with, really well-known guys. What are some of the guys from both of you that were the most memorable that you played with? Maybe some really good stories, but guys that you'll be sitting there in your office working and think of a story of and be like, God, that was hilarious. That guy was insane. We can start out with Scott on this one.
Yeah, I think I've got some pretty good Roth stories. So first off, the first day I moved to tight end, I played receiver as a true freshman. and had gone through spring and fall camp as a sophomore as a receiver. And then the week of the first game, they moved me to tight end. And I'd never had my hand in the ground, never blocked the defensive end. And I get a lineup across from Roth. Pretty sure that, drool coming out of his mouth and out of his nose. The year before, he had ripped Robert Gallery's face mask off. And I look across and it's Roth. And 2 seconds later, I'm on my back and he's just laughing at me, And that was really the way that whole day went. Didn't get off to a hot start blocking. And then I also had softball class with Roth, and it was an 8 a.m. class. And luckily we lifted before it almost every time. So I didn't have, I don't know, for some reason at that time I didn't have means of transportation. And Roth had a moped. And he was like, man, I'll give you a ride, come on. And so we would double up on his moped and go to softball. And almost never, I was always worried about being on time to stuff, and Roth was not worried about being on time to softball class. So we were at the Hawkeye softball complex there, kitty corner from Hardee's, and we're pulling in right at 8, and he diverts over to Hardee's, and we go through the drive-through. I'm like, man, I don't have any money. He's like, oh, I got you. He buys me, a couple breakfast sandwiches. And so then we pull over to softball 15 minutes late, and the teacher's like, are you Roth and Chandler? And Roth's like, yep. He goes, you know class started at 8? He goes, yep, we were here at 8. And the teacher was like, all right, you were here at 8. And Roth never would get off the bench during softball. I mean, I go out and play, it's fun. And I didn't realize why until one day we talked him into getting out there. And he struck out pretty quick. And I realized that defensive end was Roth's thing, running over people and getting after the quarterback. Softball wasn't really his thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the first time I remember Roth, I got to Iowa after having been already initiated to sex locker room and the junior college locker room, and everybody does the same thing across the nation. They take all the freshmen, they throw them in the cold plunge. And so since I'd already had to do that twice, I was really hoping as a junior I could get out of it. And so to establish my veteran standing, I started getting the cold plunge every day in spring ball. And, hey, one of you, the cold plunge doesn't affect me. And so we got all the way through spring ball, and then we get through 2-a-days, and we've got all the freshmen get thrown in the cold plunge. And I'm just looking very veteran, but they run out of freshmen. I can see Roth's just still hungry, and he's looking around trying to figure out who else he can throw in there. And he locks his eyes on me. He says, Chandler. I was like, no, come on. This doesn't even affect me. The freshmen all get cold. I've been getting in this every day. It's no big deal. That was exactly the wrong way to play it. So they throw you in there, and I acted like it was no big deal. And Roth jumps in and holds me underwater. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die. Like, this is how And in fact, when he lets me up, I get out of the water, and I'm so cold I can't breathe for a second. And but I survived. And the other moment that kind of introduced me to Iowa football was we had one of those bubble practices in the spring. I think it was my first one. And I didn't know who Bob Sanders was yet. And so when you go against cover 2, there's a little bit of a hole behind the corner on the sideline that you can complete a pass before the safety gets there, unless that safety is Bob Sanders. And so, I'm used to playing against a little slower guys and drop back and fire a bullet over there to the sideline, and Sanders just like swoops in and picks it off, runs it back for a touchdown. And I'm kind of like, it's supposed to work, and Banks goes, you can't do that against him. And he was just such an elite athlete. And I think Scott and I probably talk a lot about Roth and then Bob Sanders because he's, there's nobody like him as far as just pound for pound athleticism.
And I think his only other T1 offer was like Ball State or something like that. Like he was like a 2-star coming out. Like I don't know how that was possible. I wanted to ask you guys too about Robert Gallery, because he, from the outside looking in, seemed like quite the character with the long hair and really seemed to fit into that Raiders culture when he got drafted over there. And it was always funny when at the beginning of the games, they would run the little marquee thing with your guys' picture in your hometown, and everyone's just like sitting there normal. And then Robert Gallery's picture's like this, like making like a scowl. It was hilarious. What type of guy was he to play with?
Yeah, he was a great leader on our team. You know, he worked really hard, and he obviously had all the accolades in his senior year. Could have left before his senior year and came back because, you know, he loved being a Hawkeye. And to go into a game with your left tackle just being dominant as a quarterback is pretty exciting idea. And then, you know, when you're putting together an offense, you create plays for your playmakers, right? You have a good fast right receiver. You figure out a play for him. We figured out a play for our left tackle. That's not common. And we had this screen we'd run where drop back and then throw it over to the wide receiver, and Gallery would take off and go block the corner. And I think we ran it 2 times against Illinois. A guy named Alan Ball was the corner for Illinois. We played the NFL for a while, not a nobody, you know. And both times Gallery just flattens him. I mean, here we designed a play for highlighter left tackle, and he took full advantage. And it's the best looking play you've ever seen, where a guy just wears Robert Gallery.
Who was that one team? Because right now I feel like over the years maybe it's shifted a little bit to, you know, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and, you know, Iowa State, depending on how competitive they are from year to year. But who was that one, maybe 2 teams that you guys as a locker room and as a team were just got agitated by, like you just really wanted to kick the crap out of them and beat them, that game that you guys really looked forward to every year?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Scott.
I think Wisconsin has always been up there. You know, just such similar programs, similar styles, and I mean, atmosphere up there is great. Atmosphere in Kinnick is great, and it always felt good to win in Camp Randall. I was lucky enough to win there twice, and you know, the first one was one where Gallery chucked a trash can against the locker at halftime because we'd been playing so bad in the first half. Came back on in the second half, and then the second one was Barry Alvarez's last game up there. And
I remember that one.
That was pretty fun to send him out with an L.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that those were always really fun. And then I always feel like Coach Ferentz had extra disdain for Minnesota for some reason. He didn't like Minnesota, and so that kind of poured into us a little bit. And we usually got up pretty well for that game.
He showed that this year with calling all those extra timeouts at the end of the game just to piss off PJ Fleck. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, my junior year we were so good. We pretty much took care of everybody on the schedule except for Iowa State. And so going into my senior year, there was a little bit extra to that game, and it was fun just to, you know, dismantle them kind of across the board, offense, defense, and special teams. We were able to run it up. I think Grant Steen had like 3 interceptions that game. It's always good to beat them, but it was really good to beat them really bad the year after they kind of ruined our perfect season.
That sucked. Like that, the one team that, you know, we had quite a bit of a lead on them during that game, didn't we? And they came back at the end. Tell us a little bit about what happened in that game, because we had control of that pretty significantly for the majority of it.
Yeah, I think a couple things. One was, I think Brad had some like hand cramps and had a couple of fumbles that were uncharacteristic for him. Bad timing. And then really the bigger thing that happened there was Seneca Wallace. I mean, he's he's an amazing player. You know, he was forever because of that. And I think our defense was outstanding and gave him some fits early on, but sometimes you just run into the special players, and he showed up for the rest of that game.
Well, I really wanted to cover with you guys too that your transition out of Iowa to the next level. It start out, with Scott. You were able to have a fairly lengthy career in the NFL, a lot longer than the average, and you really caught on with Buffalo. What was it like with the draft process coming out of Iowa into the NFL, and what was it about the Buffalo Bills that really made it different for you from any other team?
Coming out, I think I probably thought I was more prepared than I was. And, I got drafted to San Diego. Yeah. They had Gates, who was, the pass catching tight end. And then we had Brandon Monumaliona, who was the blocking tight end. And I was kind of supposed to spell both of them. And didn't, only played in one game as a rookie. And I kind of started to carve out a role for myself going in the second year. And the last preseason game, I tore my sesamoid bone in my foot, bad turf toe, basically. Needed surgery, was out for the season. And then I ended up getting cut there, and I think that was just a huge wake-up call, because I just hadn't had, like in college, I didn't have injuries and didn't have too much go wrong that way. And, getting cut was a humbling experience. And so then I went to Dallas and was on practice squad and, went to the Giants for a little bit. They called me Chris the whole time. That was humbling. They didn't even know my name. And, and honestly, when I was there, I think I was, definitely one of the top 2 tight ends on the roster, if not the best, and didn't get much of an opportunity. And went back to Dallas and was the 3rd tight end and played special teams and, coming in on goal line. I started the game at fullback, just kind of doing whatever I could to hang on. And then I got cut again after the Thanksgiving Day game. And I'll never forget, I was in Dallas, so Nathan, I just called him and I was like, hey, I got cut. He's like, oh, I'm coming over. So he came over and I was like, hey, maybe I can be a long snapper. And so he was like, okay, whatever. And so he just stayed in my front yard with me for a couple hours while I was rolling the ball back to him between my legs, trying to snap, but just terrible at it, And after about 2 hours, he said, I think maybe you should just keep trying to play tight end until they stop calling. And the Bills ended up picking me up on waivers, and I went up there into a situation where they didn't really have a tight end, and the general manager knew me he was the assistant general manager in San Diego when I got drafted there. And, he said, I think you got a real opportunity here. You're going to start for us next week. And nice. I started next week, and I started the next 4 years. And, I think a lot of things, that time really prepared me for that opportunity. I got to be behind Antonio Gates and Jason Witten for the better part of 4 years there, and learned a lot from those guys. And just when my opportunity came, I was really ready and went out there and had a great camp, that first camp, and carved out a role for myself and kind of built on that for a while. And then, was able to have a decent run there for 4 years and then finish up in New England my last year.
Yeah, Scott, I know that as Hawkeye fans, everybody was super pumped to see you really finally get an opportunity with Buffalo. And it semi-turned a lot of Hawkeye fans into Buffalo Bills fans because we had to pay attention and watch what you were doing and how you did there. Hawkeye fans are probably the most loyal fans in the country. So it was it was pretty awesome to see you really finally get a solid opportunity, and you really did a lot with it. Nathan, what was your transition like going into the NFL? Because you definitely, you had the size for sure, and you had the arm strength and the ability. How did that transition go for you?
So, I didn't have a real lot of interest coming out of college. I signed as a free agent with Buffalo, and spent some time there. You kind of get as one of those fringe players, you have a little bit of control over, how you perform, but really you're subject to a numbers game. And, I think JP Lossman being their first round draft pick and then not doing real well early on, led them to keep Drew Bledsoe was the starting quarterback. They kept a veteran as the backup quarterback, and JP Lossman was the third quarterback. So, I was in really great shape at the time. Had a lot of fun with my experience there, but never really had a shot at making that team. So then I had some workouts after that. I had an ankle problem that I had lived with since high school. It was a pretty big surgery. And so, and University of Iowa was kind enough to pay for that surgery. And that effectively ended my career. Took me about a year to recover from the surgery. I had a bone graft and 2 screws put in my ankle, and then ended up having to go back and get those screws taken out. It was a great surgery for me. I lived in pretty constant pain for all those years, and then ever since that happened, I'm pain free and can walk around without paying for it the next day. So, good to get that taken care of.
What would you guys say would be the biggest difference transitioning from the locker room at Iowa and the practice field to the NFL with personalities, culture, the different performance levels? What was the biggest change that you guys witnessed from one level to the next?
Yeah, I'll speak to this a little bit because it's interesting. There's a hierarchy in college that you would expect. The head coach is the head honcho. Then you have your coordinators, then you have your position coaches, and your players underneath that. And your starters, obviously, and then the guys that play, and then the guys that don't play, right? In the NFL, it's mixed up a little bit. You have your head coach, generally the top guy, unless there's Tom Brady or something. But then those guys fill in underneath, and kind of the top players, coordinators are up there. Position coaches are way below the starters. And so I got to experience that when I got to Buffalo, and Drew Bledsoe was an established pro, and toward the end of his career there, and he's running the room. And I was like, I hope the coach is like an assistant to Drew Bledsoe here, And so it was really cool for me years later to go back to Buffalo, and we happened to be there during the Christmas break, and Scott had my wife and I come with him to their tight end party, and it was cool. It was my little brother's party. Like, it was his room, he was the guy running that show. And that was a cool experience.
Yeah, I'd say, kind of to speak to that, the longest anybody's been at Iowa, like, they're going into their 5th year, and then the coaches have been there, for a long time now. So that's not the same at every NFL team. Some teams you go and, when I was in San Diego, it was Norv Turner's first year and Phillip Rivers' second year starting. And, you just had a different dynamic there where, we had some star athletes. Damian Tomlinson was our running back, and he had, just been the MVP of the league. And so the cars were a big difference. The cars in the parking lot looked a lot different. I think that the other thing is like Nathan said, some of the players are more involved than the coaches, because coaches there's a lot of turnover in the NFL. I mean, in Buffalo, I had 3 different tight end coaches in 4.5 years. So that was my room. I was the starter, and the coach and I just worked alongside each other. Really, I think if you make it about who's in charge and that kind of thing, that's not as big a deal. You got to really work towards a goal. And I think also you have full-grown men in the NFL, whereas in college, they might be fully grown, but they're still 20, 21-year-old guys. Whereas I'm coming home to a wife and a family, and there wasn't anybody in college really coming home to a wife and kids.
Scott, What kind of car did Antonio Gates drive?
Yeah, he had a baby blue. I'm bad at cars. I think it was a Rolls Royce that I accidentally sideswiped one time.
Woo! You sideswiped it?
Yeah, I was just backing out and kind of just rubbed a little bit. Yeah.
How'd he handle that?
Every time I see or talk to Gates, he still brings that up.
Was he pissed, or was he just like, eh?
No, it was just one of his cars. He just drove a different one for a week. He didn't take it too hard.
Nice setup there, Nathan. That was awesome. What was Scott, when you came out and you really finally started to get a little bit of that NFL money, what was the first big purchase that you made? And then what was maybe the dumbest thing you bought that was like, I don't care, I want this?
I bought a Chevy Avalanche, and that was
okay.
Awesome. I really loved that truck.
Those were hot back then.
Yeah, they were. And it was cool. The dumb thing I bought, I probably bought a house before I should have in San Diego, and then got cut and sell it in 2009. So you can imagine how good I did on that. But
yeah,
that was probably a good lesson for me to learn, honestly, because I went from after that I didn't spend any money for a long time because I was worried about it.
So you didn't go buy your brother a car or something like that for all that, great brotherly advice over the years and wrapping you up in all that padding, playing football, looking out for, your body and your health for your NFL career. I mean, that might be worth like a Rolls Royce or a Range Rover or something like that.
Yeah. He had a lucrative position of working with my dad right away. So I'm pretty sure he was driving something real nice already, right?
Oh, yeah.
Attaboy. Hey, Nathan, what was that transition like when you guys decided to start your own company? The place that you were at, were they pissed off when you just said you were leaving? Were they kind of, hey man, we put you into this role, were they upset?
Yeah, I think they were. We gave them an option to integrate us, and I don't think they thought I was really going to leave. And so, it was a clean break. I stay in touch with my own old owner, and we still support each other where we can. And then it was great at being able to work with Scott. He initially, first of all, he'd been investing with me for years, so he already had exposure to what we did. And then, he's one of the reasons he stayed in the NFL for 9 years, and got to play with the Patriots this last year is because he's smart. It's one of the, as his body deteriorated, which his knee ultimately ended his career, he made up for it by being smarter than everybody else. And you can work with smart, and the competitiveness, the ability to adapt. Those are things that come straight from the football field and work in business. And so, it was pretty seamless as far as getting up and running here and having Scott be a part of it.
Okay. Hey, Scott, you have, I know Nathan said he's got all boys, I believe. Scott, do you have boys and girls? How many? Well, you have 4 kids.
Yeah. I have 3 girls and a boy.
Okay. So you guys got a balance there then, huh?
Yeah. So, we're trying to, I'm running around to softball and basketball and volleyball. Softball's the flavor of the month now that we're finally seeing the sun here in Iowa.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's nice to finally get out of that frigid weather. Not all of us can live in Texas where the weather's pretty damn nice year round. Before we end to Nathan, I wanted you to tell me a little bit about what we were talking about before we hopped on about your oldest son and his experience in Kinnick and what that was like for him, because I just thought that was a really awesome, special story.
Yeah, so I have 4 boys. I do have 1 girl. And as we've kind of started this tradition, when they turn 12, we take them up to Uncle Scott's house and go to a basketball game and a football game. And so Scott has great tickets there in the north end zone. So and then the group up there just is great to work with. So 2 years ago, I took my oldest up there, and we got a full tour of the basketball facilities. McCaffrey came over and talked to Creighton is his name, and he got to go shoot on the floor after practice that day. And then Scott came with us. We sat behind the bench for the game that night, and he got to see Fran throw temper tantrums, and all the players kind of hide their laughs, and and he loved it. Had a great time. And then the next day we go and tailgate, and we're sitting there hanging around talking, and Creighton kind of looked at us like, "That's boring." He walked around the parking lot in about 10 minutes, stirred up, I think 15, 20 kids to have a pickup football game in the parking lot there. And then he and I went into the stadium and got to see all the players warming up, and just, up close, the size of them. And lucky enough that, as old as I am, all my coaches are still there. So they were all coming over and saying hi and introducing themselves to Creighton. And then kind of a experience for me, something I didn't get to really see much as a player, was being on the field while the swarm's up in the tunnel, and the video that plays, and then as the guys run out, we had jets fly over that game. And I looked down at Creighton and I said, "So what do you think? Basketball or football?" And he goes, "Football." He's got goals.
All right. Yeah, the atmosphere, I mean, you can't really compare, even if you're a basketball junkie, the atmosphere between a college football and college basketball game. It's not really comparable. I mean, it's the college football game is, in my opinion, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sporting event you can attend in the country. So, but I'm probably a little biased being a diehard Hawkeye fan. But I'm gonna let you guys go. I know you guys got a business to run. You can't hang out and talk to me all day. So I know you're busy. You're like, when's this guy gonna shut up and quit asking questions? But hey, thank you so much to both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come on with us, and we appreciate everything that you guys did during your playing career at Iowa. And it's great for all of us Hawkeye fans to see you guys happy and healthy with your families, just flourishing in Texas and in Iowa. So thanks again to both of you guys, and good luck, continued success with the business going forward.
Thanks for having us. Always good to talk Hawks.
All right, guys. No problem. Go Hawks, guys.
Thanks.